Welcome back for another episode. First place New York Mets, Jack Ramsey and Antonio Slater here for another episode of The Amazing City. I'm not even keeping track of the episode numbers anymore.
Want me to check?
What?
I can check.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say it's 35.
I'll say it feels like 36 or something like that.
We're in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be like
We're somewhere in
36.
36. Oh, wow. All right, Jack. Well, starting off 1-0 on the day. But before we go into any sort of content here, I feel like
we need to talk about the fact that we're wearing the same shirt.
I was just going to say we need to do a little bit of a reveal. And this was completely done by accident. we're wearing the same shirt. Jack gets into the Zoom and he goes, "We were in the same shirt." And lo and behold, we are. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's kind of not for, a foresight of what we think is going to happen, but the way things are going, the Mets are hot. They've been hot. No DeGrom, now no Scherzer, no McGill for at least another week or so, probably. And yet they just keep on churning out W's. They lost the series to Seattle, which was just a hard-fought series. And then now they're facing, they took 2 out of 3 from Colorado. Was it 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4? I forget. 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3.
And in Colorado, where they've historically been a very, very good team, well above 500, and now you go into San Francisco, you beat the snot out of them. What was the score? 13-3 or something like that. I mean, JT Davis had a 4-hit game. Yeah, kind of. They're pretty decent.
I think the biggest thing for me is you are getting legitimate quality outings in big spots from Taijuan Walker, who there's been a lot of question marks about, David Peterson, who at this point coming into the year was really your 5th, 6th, or 7th starter, somewhere in that range, depending on who you talk to.
David Peterson was traded during the season.
David Peterson was trade bait.
Let's be honest.
Peterson was trade bait. But like you're at a point now where David Peterson goes into San Francisco, gets hit a little tough early, settles down, figures it out. You have Taijuan Walker putting up big performances in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can even at home. Like Trevor Williams gives you 4 great innings. Granted, wasn't as good in Colorado, but I mean, you have spots where you need pitching to step up big time, especially your depth. Really, once you get past Carrasco at this rate, even with or without Scherzer, it feels like once you get past Carrasco, there's a little bit of a drop off. And it's just, I don't think you can ask for much more.
I mean, we once again need to just talk about Jeremy Hefner. Like, Jeremy Hefner has done, I can't even describe the work that he's done with this pitching staff. Because again, Taijuan Walker, the only pitcher in baseball this year to go into Colorado and pitch 7 shutout innings. Then you have David Peterson in not really a spot start, but a tough spot in San Francisco against a good team, a team that won over 100 games last year, a team that does nothing but hit home runs, which has been a big problem for Peterson in his past. He gave up the home run in the 2nd inning, I believe, to Brandon Crawford, which was a joke because 391 to dead center is laughable. But then after that, he set down 11 in a row to end his outing. It was one of his best starts in his entire career. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with Jeremy Hefner, the way he's prepared these guys with the scouting reports and the way they utilize the numbers. And now the Mets are 29-15? Best record since 2015, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and Walker's still giving up like a lot of hard contact and some tough contact, but I think you're seeing kind of a product of almost like what we saw last year. I mean, if you have a strong defense behind guys who are more susceptible to contact, like a Taijuan Walker, even a guy like who's a ground ball, fly ball, strikeout pitcher like Peterson. Well, that's granted that's all the outcomes. But Peterson, who's a pitch to contact type of guy who's not going to go out there and strike out 10, 11, 12 a game. If you have a strong defense behind them, they'll fare a lot better than. I mean, I think the best example of it is if you look at Marcus Stroman's 2019 to 2021 numbers. 2019, it was not pretty, but part of that is you got Robinson Cano at second base, JD Davis at third,
Ahmed Rosario at short.
This is before Alonso really started to come around defensively. I mean, even the outfield was a mess. Like JD Davis had to make Willie Mays catches on routine fly balls.
Right.
It was atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
But you have such a better defensive infrastructure now. that it's not nearly as big of an issue, and you're seeing guys play up. A guy like Walker is getting some benefit from a strong defense behind him, and I think we're going to continue to see that.
Yeah, and that's one of the
things. We saw it last year.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's a huge difference.
The defense behind the pitch is so huge. I mean, we're seeing it right now. You look at you brought him up already. Marcus Stroman, what he did last year, he was a top
10 pitcher in National League.
Yeah, top 10 pitcher in National League. I'd say even top 15 or 20 in all of baseball last year, with the way he was just consistently going out and giving quality starts every single time, every single outing. It was an oddity for him to not go 6 innings. And now he's with Chicago, who is a much worse defense and a much worse team. And the last I checked, his ERA was in the 5s.
4.88 and 31 in the third.
There you go. It's a lot. And one of the things we talked about at the beginning of the season is it's not just the player, it's the landing spot. And Stroman in the Cubs is just not going to work out. So, I mean, Godspeed.
That's not a great ballpark for a guy like him either.
No, it's not.
He's very much a
positive vibes all around.
No hating from little Jackie here.
No, absolutely not.
Whatever the fuck he called me. Try not to think about that.
But yeah, I mean, the defense is so key. And that's one of the things that's propelled this team. And
look, the Mets aren't a flashy team by any means.
No, they're not.
I mean, Pete Alonso might be the most, I think, the flashiest.
Yeah.
Like, skill-wise.
Him and Marte, I would say. Because Lindor is a top talent in the game, but he's not flash and flare with the bat.
No, Lindor's not going to hit a 460-foot bomb. And
no, he'll make some insane plays, in the field. But
yeah. Absolutely. And I think you still have to remember he is probably the best defensive shortstop in baseball, if not top 2 or 3.
I would say Correa probably still has him edged out a little bit.
I don't know, man. I think there is a reason that we were hearing Carlos Correa is willing to play third base.
I think that's just because of his frame. And that is also to see where he can get the most money.
Didn't mean to hit my mic. Well, I think my point stands, though.
Right. I mean,
he is still a top. Right. Yeah. He is a top defensive shortstop in baseball. There really isn't much ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, even if it is like a 750, somewhere between 750 and 800 OPS, that's where you're getting most all of your value from him.
Right.
Is just some insane defensive play.
So you brought up last year a little bit, and that this is something I've been thinking about. Right now, the Mets 29-15 again. A ridiculous start off to an insane pace. I don't know if they'll play that throughout the entire season, but still, as of right now, it's insane. And it's a 8-game lead to second place.
Yeah, I tweeted out this morning. The Phillies are in second place, and they're closer to the last place Nationals than they are the Mets in the standings.
Bonkers.
They're 6.5 up. The Phillies are 6.5 up on Washington. The Mets are 8 up on Philly.
What's the Yankees leading the division right now? Tampa's
been pretty good. I think someone else is playing up in that division too.
Hold on.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah.
You got
okay. So the Yankees have a 4.5 game lead on Tampa, right?
29 and 13.
If you watch and you just kind of take away things from what you're watching and reading about how people are talking about the Yankees, it's that division's already locked, right? 4.5 game lead. It's like, all right, yeah, that's done. Yankees have it.
And not to mention that Tampa's also 7 games over 500. Toronto's offense can randomly click and start putting up 8 runs a game whenever they want.
Yeah. So, I mean,
like even Baltimore looks respectable.
And that's going to come down to the wire. I'm still not ruling out Boston, believe it or not. But then you go to the NL East with the Mets, and it's like
the Mets are the only team over 500
games,
in their division.
That's it could still be made. My point of what I'm trying to say here is, if the Mets didn't blow that lead last year, they're already saying this division's done, right?
No, or even if like the Mets finished like 85 and 75, and Atlanta still went 88 and 72.
If half their roster didn't
74
get murdered, essentially,
right? No, if DeGrom doesn't fall apart,
DeGrom doesn't get hurt, Lindor doesn't get hurt, Baez doesn't get hurt, Taijuan Walker doesn't get dead arm, like that team was making the postseason. So you had a team that was already good, and that was the best team in the NL East last year for 120 games. And then you added to it. The team got better. So, like, I just...
No, and I think your subtractions, I argue, except for Baez, were adequately replaced.
Right.
And even then, they seem to be doing better. They seem to be a team that's more built on a contact, get on base approach, and not like a free swinging power approach.
I mean, think about what Billy Epler said in his opening press conference. He wants people that are going to be good decision makers in the batter's box. That's Marte. That's Mark Canna's incredible. I mean, are you kidding?
Mark Canna to a T.
Not as much as with Escobar now than he was the first month of the season, but even Escobar
yesterday.
Even Escobar is, he makes better decisions up here at the plate than Javi Baez.
Yeah.
Plus, this goes without saying, but he's a defensive upgrade over JD Davis.
I think you and I are defensive upgrades over JD Davis.
I mean, my 6-pound dog is a defensive upgrade.
Can we talk about JD's 4-hit game yesterday?
If you want.
I was thinking about it as I was driving to the gym this morning. Like, this is not a flashy team. I think more often than this, like, you could probably convince me this is the last time this year they'll win a game by 10 plus runs, let alone against a good team.
Against a good team, maybe.
Yeah, San Francisco's. Yeah, they might put up
a team of the caliber of the Giants. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they play the Reds this year. They might be or some like Cincinnati, Miami, Washington, whoever.
Yeah.
But let alone against a good team. This is not a flashy team.
Right.
They're not going to hit 8 home runs and shut you out on one-hit baseball. But this is a clutch team.
Oh, yeah.
This team, I don't know what has changed. I don't know who is to credit.
Mm-hmm.
But the approach, like almost organizationally, is so much different.
No, it's incredible.
It's just night and day.
It goes back to the infrastructure that you've been harping on since day one. It's been so much better since last year. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up their stats with runners in scoring position because that's been so pivotal this year.
Even 2 outs is runners in scoring position. 2 outs, runners in scoring position to be sniffing 200 as a team is really impressive.
Yeah,
because that's not an easy spot. I mean, I'm like just looking at it. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, granted, everyone had great games yesterday. I mean, every starter gets a hit. You're in a spot now where I think if you can get JD going at least a little bit, it makes you that much better because now your bench is that much deeper. And I think that's something the Mets are, not to say struggling with so far, but aside from Jankowski, who even then is like now 3 for his last 24, the bench is not that deep. Guillorme has been Guillorme. He's been amazing. But beyond that, Dom struggles. JD's really hit or miss. Literally, Jankowski's gone cold. Nito is – I don't even know what's going on with Nito at the plate. So if you can at least get one more guy on that bench to get them going a little bit, it makes you that much deeper.
So I'm just looking it up now.
Okay.
With runners in scoring position, the Mets are hitting 275. That's 7th in all of baseball with a 124 WRC plus. You'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, no, a weighted runs created of 124, 125 is pretty good.
Now let's see with 2 outs. Checking that right now. They are 7th in baseball with a 125 WRC plus, which is still very good. That's pretty much the same. And they're second. Oh, what the frick? They are 5th in baseball with a 270 batting average with runners in scoring position with 2 outs. That's winning baseball. That's winning games.
Yeah.
That's a difference between last year to this year. Because last year, with runners in scoring position, they were around the Mendoza line. I know that for a fact. They were probably around like 210. I don't know the numbers. I don't have them in front of me.
It was not great. It was very Metsian. It was very Metsian.
It was putrid.
Yeah. No, for the last, Lord even knows how long, they have not been a strong situational team.
No, they have not.
I mean, you almost feel confident now they're going to come through in these spots. It's not like blind optimism, but you have guys up that even are just tough 2-strike hitters.
Yeah.
They're going down a lot tougher than they were in years past, and they're coming through a lot more with 2 strikes. And it's a little thing. It's a little things like extending at bats by 2, 3, 4 pitches. I mean, and as you do that, especially earlier in games, you're getting more 2C out of the starter, more of what they're going to work in, what they're going to rely on, and it just makes the game that much easier.
Yeah. I mean, even someone like Guillorme, who has been a revelation this year. His defense has always been the same, but now the fact that he's actually been able to hit consistently for a prolonged period of time, that brings value to him too. That made it a lot easier to eat $40 million on Robinson Cano's contract and let him go. Patrick Mazeika has come up and been incredible. He's making us eat our words.
Luis Guillorme currently has a higher Fangraphs WAR than Starling Marte and Eduardo Escobar. And that's not a knock on either of them. Like, they're still on pace to be like 3-4 win players.
Yeah.
But Guillorme's got a 0.7 F WAR right now, which is impressive. And he's done that in 75 plate appearances.
Yeah.
That's kind of nuts.
That's very nuts.
Oh my God.
That's what good defense brings to your team.
Yeah.
Plus his value with that. Again, he's hitting the ball now. He was able to kind of have like short little spurts of success at the plate, but I think he's got like a 13-game hitting streak. I think he's been on base in like 25 straight games. That's just something ridiculous like that. Guillorme has been very valuable to this team.
Yeah, and you cannot overlook that.
Yeah. And you brought up Escobar, and I think I might need a new nickname for him. I think I got something for him. So
Booty Cheeks.
No. So I'm watching the game with my fiance.
Subtle
and and my fiance is Puerto Rican, so she always gets excited whenever she sees a Latino player. And I've always told her that the Mets have a lot of Puerto Rican, Dominican, and Latino players on the team. So she gets happy when she sees another one, and she sees, oh, Escobar, I know him. And then she has this very focused look on her face, like she's trying to figure out what his first name is. And then she snaps her fingers like, I got it. She goes, his name's Paul. Paul Escobar.
That's not even close.
Not even a little close. I think she's trying to think maybe Pablo Escobar. So from now on, Eduardo Escobar will be Paul. We're going to ride that out for a little bit. And if it works,
see how far it takes us?
Yeah, exactly.
Nah, I mean, I'm in.
All right.
I'm in.
Nice. All right. So we got our first nickname.
All right. So getting back on topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a huge stretch for the team.
Yes.
Game 1, you beat the shit out of a good opponent.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough, I think it's like a 21-game stretch you got coming up before you can beef up again before the break.
Yeah.
So 22-game stretch, you're 1-0 to start. Reasonable expectation. Because you got Los Angeles on the road, Los Angeles, and San Diego.
Again, I think we briefly touched on this last time. If you can go somewhere around 500, you're over the moon. I get this team has been playing excellent.
I mean, you're down McGill, you're down Scherzer.
Right.
Drew Smith regression season might be on the way.
Nah, he's back. He's good.
You would never admit it anyway.
Of course not. Absolutely not. I think it's like a 22-game stretch. If they can go 11-11, you feel great.
I think I think you're ecstatic about that.
Yeah.
Because in the stretch you get Miami for the first time, and that's still if you run into the rotation at the right time, you might put up.
Oh yeah.
You might put up 3 runs in 3 games. So I mean, really looking at right now, you got 2 more with San Francisco, 3 with Philly. You have a little intermission with Washington. You get 3 there. 4 with the Dodgers, 3 with the Padres, days off, 3 with the Angels, 3 at home with the Brewers, 4 at home with the Marlins, 2 in Houston, 3 in Miami, 2 home with Houston. But like we've said before, leading up to the All-Star break, you have Texas, Cincy, Miami, Atlanta, Chicago.
Dude, this is a freaking gauntlet.
Well, I'll tell you what the real make or break for them is going to be. That's going to decide the season effectively. Beginning of August, you go 4 with Atlanta. Then 4 days later, you have 3 with Philly, 4 in Atlanta. You have 8 with Atlanta in a span of 2 weeks. Which I still think in the end, that's going to be your biggest competitor. I know
yeah, that's not even a question to me.
they're reeling, but if there's one team in this division of the three that are reasonable competitors, one team I trust to figure it out, it's Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't think Miami has the bats. I don't think they have the ownership to go in at the deadline.
No.
I don't think Philly has the ability to make the big moves they need to make. I don't know if
they have Dombrowski, who likes to make the big dick moves, but who are they trading?
I don't know if you have the assets to make the big dick moves.
Right.
You might be shooting at 3 or 4 middle relievers.
Right.
But I don't know if you're going to be able to go out and get that top front end starter.
No, I don't think they can. And
listen, I don't think they have what it takes to go like Montez. Yeah.
Atlanta has to be the threat here.
Yeah, and Atlanta
Acuna's just coming back. Matt Olson has been ice cold recently. Austin Riley has been playing the same way. Defensively, he's been, I mean, JD Davis level bad defensively recently. Bullpen has been great. Their starting pitcher has been a struggle the entire season for the most part. Coming into last week, Charlie Morton had an ERA in the 6s or something like that.
Even like Miami, I'm looking at their numbers right now. Jazz Chisholm is a 922 OPS. No one else is over 760.
Yeah.
Avisail Garcia has a 533. Jorge Soler 730. But I mean, like just looking at Atlanta, yeah, they're of qualified batters. Their best OPS right now, Matt Olson at 787. Austin Riley's a 757. Dansby's a 709. Albies 685. Ozuna 682. I mean, Wright and Fried have been good.
Mm-hmm.
Anderson's been decent.
Up and down.
I think he's sitting around above a 407. So I mean, it's looking good. Yeah, no, absolutely. But like the bats just haven't been there. The bullpen's still been good. AJ Minter's been great.
Mm-hmm. Tyler Matz has just been on the IL.
I think Jansen's been all right.
Yeah, I mean, Jansen's been Jansen. He's not. I mean,
Will Smith has been good. Colin McHugh's been good. Like you got it's a good bullpen. It's a good enough rotation. But like, are you really going to bank on Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, and Ozzie Albies and Dansby Swanson? None of them having an 800 OPS.
No. Listen, they're gonna even it out.
And that's without talking about probably the second or third best player in the National League. In Acuna.
Right. Who's like, still getting back into it.
Right. I mean, by July.
Yeah.
Like you cannot count on them just rolling out duck farts basically every other series.
No, I have,
because even when they start to look good, like they start to look good against the Mets. I mean, 2-2 on the road, including a doubleheader, you take that. Especially a team that's been, reeling a little bit.
Yeah.
But then, like, you come back, you get knocked around at home by the Dodgers. Not the Dodgers, the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
You struggle with the Brewers.
They lost 3 out of 4 to the Reds.
Right. You squeak by Miami. You struggle with Cincy. It's just...
Their start this year is very reminiscent to their start last year.
But I think here's the difference. Last year, guys were hurt. Felt like they didn't have totally all the pieces they needed. And no one else in the division was really playing great.
Right.
Whereas now you're already 9 back, and it's not even Labor Day.
Right.
We are not. You can still wear white shorts, and you are 9 back.
Right.
That's a problem. But here's the thing: is if you're really looking at that team, like where do you make the massive upgrade? You have an all-world first baseman.
Sure.
You have a great second baseman.
Your infield set.
No, your infield is set, and they're all struggling. Even Darno, like your catching is probably set.
Right.
Contreras and Darno is a playoff caliber catching tandem. It's not
when healthy.
Right. Yeah, but it's not getting the job done.
No.
I mean, in the outfield, where are you going to upgrade? You're on the books for all of our Marcell Ozuna's money.
I think that's probably where they look because
you can
they have Acuna, they have Ozuna, and I forget who else they have playing out there. But
Duval's up.
Thank you.
Duval's been in center. Yeah, you can absolutely upgrade in center, but
at some point you have either Guillermo Heredia or Travis Demerit playing. They're not going to get 500 at bats.
But here's the thing: I don't think they're at the point where one bat's going to make the difference.
No.
Okay, so let's say you go out and you get the center fielder.
Right.
Let's say you go. Let's say you get Mullins from Baltimore.
Okay.
He's your big deadline get.
Sure.
Is Cedric Mullins the top tier center fielder, if not top tier, second tier. Is he enough to be able to turn around that Atlanta offense? No, he's not.
No.
Because you're now banking on guys waking up. And this is the problem I've had with the Mets year in, year out since Sandy Alderson, since his first time. You go into every year saying, okay, well, assuming this guy.
Right.
You go into the deadlines, well, if he just wakes up and plays like he did last year, Atlanta's in that spot. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Charlie Morton's got a great track record if he can just turn it around. You know, like Duvall was great for us last year. It's a huge reason we won a ring if he can turn it around. I mean, if Albies can get back to his 800 OPS, even though he's under 700 right now. So you have all these what ifs.
Right.
I mean, at least like with Philly, you know what their problem is. Their bullpen
Yeah.
couldn't hit the broadside of a barn till it was 2 inches from their face.
Right.
It's just an atrocious bullpen and terrible defense. You
Right.
know what the problem is. I think if you look at Atlanta right now, you know what the problem is, but it's not personnel. You have the guys in place to run away with this division effectively. Because I think we can all admit the Mets are overperforming a little bit too. And I don't think anyone saw Chase and Shreve and Drew Smith and maybe even Colin Holderman being locked down relievers.
Colin Holderman's been awesome.
Right. And I don't think anyone saw if I told you in, like, hey, by mid-May, Drew Smith, Chase and Shreve, Colin Holderman, those might be the guys you're running out to get you to Diaz. I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what happened?
What happened to get to that
Are
spot?
we already looking? Yeah, like, who are we selling off for the deadline? Like,
Right.
Like, where are
Right.
we shipping Escobar? Where are we shipping Canna?
Right. Like, listen, I know I've been on the Drew Smith season bandwagon the entire season,
The
but
whole
if you
bullpen's
told
pretty
me,
up. Joely Rodriguez.
on May 24th that Drew Smith might be the top setup guy in this bullpen, I would say, what are we, 10 games under? Who do we
how
trade
far
off
back are
already?
we from Atlanta?
Yeah.
And it's just, it's nuts. The
Yeah.
bullpen's been, I mean, for all the chatter coming into the year, you could argue the biggest question mark in their bullpen right now is Seth Lugo, who's got like the 4.2, 4.5 ERA, something like that.
I mean,
Shreve has come back to earth a little bit, but like
Yeah.
he's still been more than serviceable. I think he's just, we're realizing again, he's still just a lefty guy. He can
Yeah.
get some righties out,
right.
but like,
Gave up a freaking tank piece to Jesse Winker, but
yeah,
that's
that was a turn the game off type of moment.
that
But
was.
so you got
I mean,
Joely Rodriguez has a 3.86 ERA and a WHIP of exactly 1.
you love that.
Drew Smith has a
You love-
1.45 and a WHIP of 0.91.
You love that.
Ottavino's back down to a 3.94 after one bad outing when he went out
Yeah.
3 days in a row.
Yeah, that was.
Mismanagement flared him up.
Mhm.
He's been truer to like a 3 ERA guy, high twos.
Yeah,
You love it. You love it. Edwin Diaz, a 2.0.
he's been electric, dude.
He's been nuts. Holderman has not given up a run yet.
Yeah.
I mean, even before he
Small
got
sample size is only 5 innings, but still.
right, and like even before he got tattooed in Colorado, Adonis Medina have been great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just not to say there aren't question marks in this bullpen. Every bullpen's got question marks, but we're at a point where you're confident in it. You're confident in who's ending the games for you, and
Yeah.
the guys who are getting you there, and you
Yeah.
know you're gonna be able to upgrade. But it's a strong bullpen, and pitching is proving to be the backbone of this team. And I think the pitching is deeper than you thought.
Oh, yeah. And
I
it
mean-
just comes down to everyone's just doing their job. Everyone's doing their job. And that's how you win games here. It's like the
No, you're
Patriots in
not-
the NFL. Their motto is literally do your job. And they've won 98 Super Bowls in the last 4 seasons.
Yeah, and I mean, and you're at a point where like you're far enough into the season, you know what you are, but you also know what's going to get you places.
Yeah.
Pitching and defense is the backbone of this team.
Yeah.
That's going to get you to the playoffs. If the Mets can add a big bat at the deadline, that's what's going to get you.
Over the top.
That's what's going to get you to playing games on Halloween.
Yeah.
And I think pitching wise, assuming there's no issues with Scherzer coming back, and even keeping DeGrom out of this equation,
Mhm.
when McGill should be back in what 2-3 weeks. He's throwing again, so I
Yeah,
think
he's already throwing on flat ground, so I'd say maybe 2 weeks.
yeah, we'll call it 2-3 weeks. You got Scherzer coming back probably around the All-Star break.
Sure.
So with them, I don't want to say it's World Series caliber pitching,
I'll say it.
Hey, they were
You
pitching.
shitting me?
Well, I don't want to jinx it, but the
Okay.
way they had been pitching, it's almost like the way this team feels right now is very 2015-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just saying that because we're wearing the shirts,
Right.
but this is a pitching first team that has the supporting cast to get you there.
Right.
But you're missing that one big piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that one piece is Pete Alonso. I don't think it's like, you know what, he's a focal point. I think you're missing that one big piece. And I hope you know they're going to address it at the deadline.
Oh, of course they are.
But like, you want to talk about Dombrowski slapping his nuts on the table and making the big moves?
Billy Epler's
Billy
chomping
Epler
at the
will
bit.
take the swing.
Yeah.
Billy Epler will take the swing he needs to take.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting, man.
Yeah. I don't think we're in the Frankie Montas area right now.
I don't think you need top end pitching.
No, you don't.
I think
you absolutely don't.
I
You
think
need
if
someone
you
to round out the rotation at this point.
I think it depends. I don't know, man. I'm only going to say I don't know because you're about to get a legitimate, consistent look at David Peterson.
Yes.
I'm not going to say I'm comfortable with David Peterson making starts in August and October.
No, not yet.
But if you're at a point where Max Scherzer is back and within reasonable expectation, the All-Star break deadline, or even somewhere in between, and you're going Scherzer, Baskett, Carrasco, Walker, McGill, with Peterson right behind, I don't think you even need to add a starter because you know what? Because you have Jacob deGrom waiting.
The best pitcher in baseball is looming.
Because you have the best pitcher baseball has seen since Pedro Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
Or a young Clayton Kershaw.
Right.
I would say peak deGrom, you can absolutely debate with a peak Kershaw.
People don't want to say it, but yes, you can.
Because you got to remember how the different offensive games and the baseballs.
Right.
You have him waiting. Now, should you go out and get someone, go get your Addison Reed? Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Go get your Cespedes.
Yeah.
But I don't think you need to add starting pitching. Do you want to add another Adonis Medina, Yohan Lopez, David Peterson? Sure. Absolutely. That never hurts.
Listen,
And it just feels like you have the pitching, and maybe they are like a Cespedes Baez type bat away, but I don't think it's a big arm. Because I think you have the pitching. I don't think you want to get yourself into a spot where you got 6-7 guys on major league contracts. Like you're forcing guys to pitch out of the pen who have never done it before. You got people that's like October is the worst time to figure that out, especially if you're a high end starter.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't look at Taijuan Walker and just guarantee he's gonna be great out of the pen. You know, you just don't know. And that's not something I think you want to figure out that late in the. It's one thing to do with like a John Neese, Bartolo Colon. I think it's different with those because you could already make the argument Neese at that point of his career with the Mets was profiling more as a reliever.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty fair.
So I don't think that's something, and I feel like it's unnecessary.
Yeah, that's why
I got to remember if you're marching towards October, you don't want to start pissing dudes off.
Yeah.
And if you got 6-7 guys on starters, let alone on major league contracts that you can't send down, someone knows someone's got to go.
Yeah, and one of the big things about this team is the camaraderie with it, and that's you don't want to set that off.
Absolutely.
So I kind of have to agree with you. I don't think that's why I'm not really buying into the Frankie Montas, Luis Castillo kind of thing.
It's even like you
doesn't make any
so
sense
much capital. You only have so much capital. Spend it where it's needed.
Right. Like I can maybe see a Tyler Mahle, but even that, I don't know.
I would add to like the McGill Peterson level of guys.
Yeah,
I'm not a believer in
Jose Quintana. I think that's going to start plummeting any moment now. The same thing with Martin Perez. I feel like they're just kind of pitching over their heads at this point. I'm not huge believers in those guys.
Look, I'm always all for adding a depth. If you want to add on to the fringes of the 40, go for it.
Yeah.
But I don't
if
think
you can trade like a player to be named later for a guy that listen, I jokingly said this name before, but he has an uptick in velocity and out of the bullpen, he might be of some value. But like if you could trade like not a whole lot, get like a Mitch Keller who's gonna throw hard and give you some maybe like 2 innings out of the pen, maybe a spot start, even though he's so bad at when he starts. Yeah, something like that. I don't think right now, especially given the lead that they have in the division, If there was only like a 2-3 game lead in the division, I'd say, all right, let's make some moves, Billy. But if we win today, if the Mets win today, Philly loses, you got a 10-game lead. You got a 10-game lead.
I don't think they ever had 10 games last year.
Maybe. I don't know. I think the Braves may have been down 10 at one point. I don't know that for 100% fact.
Yeah, maybe.
But the fact that
Atlanta was 10 out, there's a good chance Washington was right on their tails.
We're not even in June.
No.
And you'd be looking at a 10-game lead in the division.
Well, speaking of Philly, that's next up after San Francisco.
That is next up. That's right.
So I think you're at home with Philly and Washington?
Yes. And you've done well with Philly so far this year. I think what's the record on the year right now?
Philly? They're 2 under.
No. Like the record.
Oh, with Philly, 6-3.
6-3.
You're 9 out of 19, and then you're 6-3.
Yeah.
I said it last episode, 2 episodes ago. You can play 5, 6, 7 over 500 with Philly. You really just have to go 500 with Atlanta.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, depending on who ends up being the better team.
That'll be Atlanta.
Right, but you got to beat up on one of them.
Yeah.
And I think can't really escape that one. But I definitely think, I mean, this could be the series where they bury Philly.
It definitely could.
If you start, I mean, so let's say you go into the series with a 9-game lead, what they have now. Right. 2 out of 3, put them 10 back, and then you're 8-4 in the year with them already. That's a division. You're starting to bury them in the division.
Yeah.
Because I mean, 9 games in is great, but if you're 12 out of 19 in and you already have 8 wins against them, even if Philly runs the table with them, 8-11, that's still the Mets are. If the Mets go 8-11 with Philly, I think they still end up a playoff team, or you're still in that conversation into September.
They're at bare minimum during the conversation. You're not trying to go 8-11 with anyone in the division,
right, absolutely.
Especially someone that
you're better than.
Yeah,
but I think you're maybe teetering on a point of the division starting to move out of Philly's hands,
right,
out of their reach, because by then you'll effectively be 2 months into the season, which isn't a lot. But if you're 2/3 of the way into the season with a divisional leader, and it's not a quick divisional lead,
right?
I mean, if you can get you can get up 11, 10, 11, 12 on Philly already, and I mean.
Before the calendar turns to June, that's
right.
That's
like you can feel good about being up on Atlanta 9 games, but you're only 2-2 with them so far.
Right? Yeah, you haven't.
You want to beat them more head-to-head. If you can be 8-4 against Philly to start the year, Philly might be out of the division by June. Because their June stretch, you want to talk about the Mets having a stretch? The Phillies have a stretch to end the first half. They could be selling off pieces by the deadline with how bad the stretch is. Let me pull it up. Someone sent me a picture of it the other day when I pointed out that the Mets start June with a gauntlet. They're in it right now. Started May 12th in LA. Granted, they win 3 out of 4.
Yeah,
but you're in LA, home for the Padres.
Teeth, but yeah,
they should have lost a couple of those games. You're in LA, day off. Home for the Padres, home for the Dodgers. You're in Atlanta right now. You go to the Mets. Then you host the Giants. Then you host the Angels. Then you go to Milwaukee. You host an above 500 Diamondbacks team. And then you host the Marlins. Then after that, going into the break, at the end of June, you have the Padres. You're in San Diego. You're home for the Braves. Cardinals again. Blue Jays. With the Cubs in there.
There's no time off in there.
You have 3 with Washington at home. But if you're not an impressive team right now and you have the Dodgers, Padres, Braves, Mets, Giants, Blue Jays, Brewers, and Padres again coming up.
There's legit no time off in that stretch.
You have 3 games with Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Mets can increase their lead with Philly as Philly goes into play those opponents, Philly can be out of this by mid-June. We might be looking at a Philly team that's 10 games under 500.
That might be that's why it's going to be even more pivotal to kind of go around 500 in this stretch of games where the Mets are facing their gauntlet and going into their month of June.
Because we talked about this last year too.
If
like
you could play 500 ball in this stretch, while Philly is, I mean, if they play 500 ball,
that's a murderer's row. It's a murderer's row.
It's like you said.
For a month.
Yeah, it's like you said. One team gone out before we're at the deadline.
And I think we talked about this last year too. The Mets had that like 11-game road stretch where you're like, look, just go 5-6.
They went 3-8.
And you're still on, and they go 3-8. I think it was like 2-9, and it tanked them.
Yeah, that was the Giants, the Dodgers, Giants again. I think
it was brutal, and that's what ended their season.
Yes,
but I think if you're the Mets, you're lucky enough that this gauntlet of a stretch is going to start with a massive divisional lead, and then you have cushiony games right after. You have the Rangers, the Reds, and the Cubs at some point leading into the break, and the Marlins. Granted, the Marlins always play you tough, but I don't necessarily believe into that stuff because the players and the coaches change every year.
I think there is something to it, but
I mean, you can say the Marlins play you tough when it's like, sure, that's great, but that's a Marlins team from 3 years ago.
They can play you tough, and you can still win 3-2.
Right? Yeah, they can play you. You can say, "Oh, the Marlins play you tough," but the first game that comes to mind when you think of them playing you tough is Wei Yan Chen throwing in a shutout or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's not the Jose Soler, Jesus Aguilar, Jorge Soler, Avisail Garcia. Like that, there's a lot of turnover there. Even like Pablo Lopez, the pitching they have, that's only like 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a good team, but you got to see how these teams match up. And I think it's a good matchup for Miami. I think this is the Mets offense that is prone to getting shut down by good pitching.
Oh, sure. I'm a firm believer that good pitching is going to be good hitting any day of the week.
Absolutely.
And that's going back to 2015. That's how the Mets got
World
there.
Series. And then you saw it in the World Series. Good pitching and defense. The better pitching and defense won out.
Yeah.
That was not a series of hitting tanks over the wall left and right.
Right.
The better pitching and the better hitting, more importantly, the better defense won out.
They just did not make mistakes.
They did not. I mean, I think the Mets, you can almost compare this Mets offense to a very peak Royals offense of just death by paper cuts.
Yeah.
The Mets aren't going to come out, hit double after double, then smack one over the wall and then lace a triple. This team is going to grind out at bats. Yeah. Grind out at bats, draw their walks, get on base, situational running, willing to put the ball in play and make stuff happen. Yeah. It's a very Royals-esque offense. Yeah, so I think it's a very Royals-esque team.
I think so.
This team feels very much like those 2014, 15, and 16 Royals teams.
Which is funny because I feel like when it comes to trade time, the Mets and Royals make a lot of sense for trade partners.
I think
the one thing the Royals have, they got arms.
I was even thinking if he's willing to come off the bench in pursuit of a ring, or like not to come off the bench, but work in and out of platoons. Whit Merrifield, oh my God, is a hell of a fit.
Listen, he got off to one of the worst starts I've ever seen. I think at one point his OPS was like 340, but it's crept up. I think his average is over 215 now, which like yay, whoop-de-doo. But compared to where it was a month ago or 3 weeks ago,
it's like what we were talking. It's like looking at It's like looking at the slow start Lindor got off to last year. He ended up hitting like 240. Yeah, sure, but his OPS was in the 500s in May.
Right.
Like, you got to look at things from here on out.
Exactly. But, yeah, Whit Merrifield is absolutely someone that if you want to target to try to get that last kind of – he's not a big bat per se, but he's someone that fits this team because, like you said, this team is very –
I think looking at it from a bench profile, I think he makes a lot of sense.
I don't think maybe off the bench.
There's a lot of versatility there.
McNeil full-time at third, and you could put Whit Merrifield full-time at second base. Why does my camera keep doing that? Hello. Yeah, you put McNeil, McNeil at third, Whit Merrifield at second base. There's your infield. Or hell, Starling Marte needs a day off.
You could even work like a Merrifield Escobar platoon.
Absolutely.
With McNeil bouncing back between second and third, depending on the matchup.
Yeah. If you
Escobar can even play second base.
Yeah,
he was a second baseman.
Yeah. I'm not saying go after and get like Zach Greinke because I don't think he'd do very well in a New York market. And again, I don't think we really need to add that high profile of a starter. But again, they got a stable of arms in their bullpen. They got Scott Barlow, who's electric. Josh Stallman, if you can
I
figure out,
really wanted them to get Barlow last year.
yeah, if you can figure out how to have these guys consistently throw strikes, especially Stallman with his 100-mile-per-hour heater and his 85 curveball, he's going to be unhittable. So if you can maybe package one of those two guys together, you got a team.
I do not disagree one bit. I think you need to add to the bench, specifically on the infield side.
Yeah.
And I think you need to. I think you have more options in term. I think if you're looking at your depth, Nick Plummer has been great in Syracuse. Jake Mangum just got promoted to Syracuse. You have more options.
I think it's only a matter of time before he sees the big leagues.
Agreed. Granted, he's also 26. Like they might be pushing him along. Anyway.
That's also good. Yeah, true.
But I think you have more options in terms of your depth. You have more options outfield wise. You don't have, I think, as many on the infield.
No.
I think that's where
that's
you look for the bench.
looking.
I think you look at like a JD, someone who can fit into the JD Dom realm.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even if JD's starting to heat up a little bit, Dom's not getting it done.
No, he hasn't.
Dom might be in Syracuse by Labor Day if the Mets decide to add another outfielder. I mean, if you're at a point where you're like, we need a better option from Dom. I mean, if Dom realistically is a first base outfield DH guy, I mean, they've worked Canna at first.
Right. Behind the scenes, yeah.
Right, yeah. But if you like desperately need someone at first base, you can work Canna at first, send Dom down and call up Plummer.
Yeah,
Because I think
crazy that Dom still has options.
Well, I think you're also at the point where you have to start looking at it realistically. It's hard to get him going, and you're not going to be able to during the stretch. You're not going to be able to give him cupcake at bats against Washington. Like, even if you start him all 3 games against Washington, that's 11, 12 at bats in 3 days, which is good, and he needs that. But then immediately after, you got LA, San Diego.
Yeah.
You can't be getting him going on a West Coast gauntlet.
Especially if JD can start hitting right-handers.
Right. If JD can just start hitting and start being a decent bat off the bench, and you have Yorme, I'd even maybe say I'm in favor. I am for sending Dom down and bringing Plummer up.
I think it's starting to look like Dom might be the first one out. I don't think they option him.
I don't think he has any trade value.
I
see, but here's the thing: is I don't know what he has.
He can get you an arm.
How good of an arm? What type of arm is he getting you? Is he getting you a Yohan Lopez, Thomas Apucky, Adonis Medina? Because I think you have to realize defensively he's not great anyway.
Right.
The first base defense has struggled if you look into the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been that good. It's not good in the outfield.
No, it's not.
So where are you putting him?
Yeah.
And even then, the bat is just – even the balls he's hitting hard, he's hitting some rockets, but it's like half of them are on the ground.
Right. And that's
so he's struggling to make hard contact. And when he does make the hard contact, he's not lifting. It's all grounded. Maybe someone like a Baltimore or like a – maybe even a Cleveland, someone who's willing to take time and kind of work as like a reclamation project.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somewhere
Oakland.
there. Yeah, Oakland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, whatever. Maybe it's like a reclamation type thing.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, man, send Dom for Drury straight up. I'm a Brandon Drury guy.
Give me Lucas Sims and we're talking.
But I think you're at a point now where I think you have to start seriously considering that.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Philly and Washington in the next 6. If you leave these 2 series, if you leave the homestand, heading out west, and you still are not feeling comfortable with Dom Smith on your roster, you can't be playing down a guy effectively.
Yeah.
Because if you're not confident in him on the roster, where are you getting him in? Are you trusting him taking those late game at bats against top tier bullpens?
Right.
That's
kind of the problem. Is like he's not even the first guy off the bench anymore.
Right. Like if you have a righty up, he's not the first guy.
They're going to Guillorme more than him.
They're going to Guillorme and JD.
If Mazika keeps hitting, they might go to him.
I think Dom's like day by day, he's just moving further and further down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, maybe it's always been this way, and that's where they were pumping out that, he took Scherzer deep twice in scrimmages and all that in spring training, and he was getting some cupcake at bats in spring training. And maybe they should have moved him at the end of spring training. Regardless of the Hosmer deal, I think it's any deal. Maybe they should have moved him.
I'm shocked he was on the opening day roster.
I'm shocked him, McNeil, and JD all were.
Yeah.
But McNeil's back. JD's showing. I mean, granted, Dom had a 4-hit game, and then he immediately dropped off.
And then he went 0 for 20.
But JD hit the ball hard last night.
Yeah.
And he looked decent enough.
And listen, and to his credit, JD's been. I talk a lot of shit about JD. I talk a lot of shit about him.
Me too, man.
But this year, he's actually been hitting the ball pretty hard. He's been hitting the ball on the screws an awful lot. You can't necessarily say that about Dom. Again, Dom had a couple good games, but there's been nothing prolonged. And granted, it's not the same thing with JD. I think yesterday his 4-hit game improved his batting average to 215. But
no, yeah, I mean,
you get the point.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, what's your? I think is this like a hope for 5-1 homestand? Expect 4-2.
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
They still haven't swept anyone this year. They still haven't swept anyone.
Wow.
Every series they have won every series so far, except for one split.
Except for Seattle.
And they've either gone right, except for Seattle. They had a 2-2 split with Atlanta.
Mm.
Everything else that's either been 3-1 or 2-1. They have not won more than 4 games in a row, I think, this year. But they have not lost consecutive days or consecutive games since I think like 10 games in.
29-15. That's all that matters.
No,
So now,
I mean,
do we do our predictions for the Giants series or for Philly?
I'm going to say the Giants.
Okay.
So since it's seeming like Thomas DePucky will get the start tomorrow,
Right, which is
assuming this goes up today, that's Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he gives you 5 innings of shutout baseball.
Wow.
I'm not a believer in him as a starter long term, but I think he has a good curveball.
Would it be his first career start?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he has good enough stuff, and I think he has the stuff that'll play up in the big leagues. I don't think he's a long-term starter, but I think he has a little bit of rope. I think he's rope leash enough now that he can make it work for a start.
Okay.
So that's my hot take. You get 5 innings of shutout baseball from Thomas DePucky, assuming this is all still going according to what Mike Puma said of the heavy indications that Pucky makes a start on Wednesday.
I have to believe it is.
Right, unless you're literally making a move today.
Right.
Or Yohan Lopez's suspension is for some reason commuted. So you got Bassett. Are you doing Philly or San Francisco?
I'll stick with San Fran.
So you got Bassett and Jacob Webb tonight. Likely Zapucky and Jacob Junis tomorrow.
I'm going to go back to one that I've already done before, but it didn't hit, so for me it doesn't count. I'm going Jeff McNeil cycle watch.
San Francisco is the ballpark to do that.
It sure is.
He does not have the speed to leg out a triple in most ballparks.
Mm-hmm.
But if he puts one in the alley in right center,
but a lefty in triples alley,
spot.
oh yeah,
that's his spot, man. He's got the bat control for it.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change it because he already went deep once in the series, and I can't remember the last time he's hit 2 home runs in the same series.
2019, probably
Something like that.
20 home runs, or maybe the juiced ball COVID year.
I'll go Escobar.
Escobar cycle watch?
I'm going Paul cycle watch.
A cycle for Paulie?
A cycle for Paulie. Paulie cycles.
And it's 209 batting average.
That's right.
By the way, we didn't touch on it too much. But the last, I'm going to put it at 15 games.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I'll put it at 30.
Okay.
Starling Marte, 276, 313, 441.
He's been good, man.
I got to sneeze, but it's not coming. Fuck. No,
his 30 pace has fallen off a little bit.
Yeah, that was not good for me.
But he also provided one of the coolest moments of the year so far.
He's back to hitting the ball hard.
Yeah.
He's hitting the ball hard. It's a lot of it's getting off the ground now.
Yeah, and that was the key.
He's getting the ball off the ground. He's going gap to gap.
That was the key. And that kind of started really around that comeback in Philly.
Yes.
That's when it kind of started.
And it really hit ahead in Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, again, it doesn't get cooler than that. How do you not love baseball? First pitch he sees after coming off the bereavement list, he lost his grandmother on, I think, the 2-year anniversary of his wife's passing. I mean, and the first pitch you see,
close to it.
You hit an absolute moonshot to left center. I don't care that was a Coors Field. That was gone anywhere. That was going out in every single ballpark. And that was such a cool moment. You saw him rounding third. He was getting emotional. That meant a lot to him. Awesome moment. How do you not love baseball? But yeah, man, he's been awesome. He's been great. He started off a little bit slow, but again, he's hitting the ball hard and he's lifting it now. That's what you're starting to see these last couple of weeks is the ground ball concerns were there a little bit, especially with the guys at the top of the order with Marte, Lindor, Escobar, Alonso a little bit. But now the guys are hitting the ball harder. They're lifting the ball a little bit more. There's some speculation that they may have juiced the balls again. I'm not really buying into that quite yet.
I'm not buying into it either just because you have an offense of guys that are known to hit piss missiles left and right.
Right.
And now they're starting to hit some piss. Like JD Davis, when he hits the ball, it's a piss missile.
Right. He hits the ball
Starling
3 times
Marte,
a week, but yeah.
Yeah, Starling Marte hits rockets. Pete Alonso hits rockets.
Pete wakes up, rolls out of bed, and hits the ball 105 miles an hour.
If he's still going at this next week, we'll have an MVP conversation.
Yes. I'm not all the way there.
I see the candidacy. I feel like he's a very like Austin Riley candidate.
Listen, like right now, he's getting votes. He's in the conversation. He's getting votes. Like maybe not top 5, but he's top 10, 100%.
Right, and I think his candidacy this year is very similar to Austin Riley's last year, just in the sense that this team can't not have a candidate.
Right.
Pete Alonso is not an MVP. He's not the best hitter on most playoff teams.
Okay.
But
you can make the argument he's not the best hitter on this team.
No, I think Brandon Nimmo is.
Yes.
I think there's a real conversation between Alonso and McNeil.
Okay.
But that might be a next week talk.
But to your point, because Alonso's always been power. But this year he's a lot of power
walking
with just
getting base
average.
hits.
He's getting yeah.
I mean, if he's getting on at 350 and hitting 280 with the power he has, he's a top 5 MVP guy.
Like quarter of the season, he's got 11 tanks and 40 RBI.
I'll take 44 and 120 with a 280 average.
Yeah, you do. And listen, you hit 280, you hit 45 bombs, you drive in 120, 130.
You're gonna. I don't care. Man.
You're the MVP.
You are getting votes.
You're the MVP. Arenado is going to give is going to give a fight. Freddie Freeman's going to give him a fight. Mookie Betts keeps going. He's going to give him a fight. But we'll see if he keeps us going. MVP.
Yeah. No, I mean,
we'll see. Still 100 at this point. What 120 exactly games left? I think. So let's see, 29 to 15. That's math. That's
not 40. Number. No, it's 42.
Yeah, 42. Yeah. No. 44. 29 to 15.
What's 29 plus 15?
It's 44.
I'm a poli-sci major. I don't do math. 44.
Yeah.
You're a grown-ass man.
I sure am.
So you have 44 games left. 40 homer pace.
We're 44 games in.
You knew what I meant. 40, 45 homer pace.
Yeah.
280 average, 110, 120 RBIs.
Yeah.
That's your MVP, and you can kiss my ass.
There it is. We had a kiss my ass taking quite some time. And that's where we're going to end it here. As always, it's Jack Ramsey. It's Antonio Slater. Follow us on Twitter at Amazing City, Antonio Slater,
YouTube.
Jack W. Ramsey, and subscribe to YouTube. Trust me, I know we've been saying it all year, but finally, this week, we will have something additional just besides the episodes. So, stay tuned, subscribe. And as always, LFGM.